It's almost 2 years ago. I'm sitting with my dad on my back deck. I just turned 40. And as you do on those milestone birthdays, I started to reflect on my life. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. When I was in middle school, I would walk through Office Depot and imagine all the office supplies I would buy for my future company. It's true. When I was in high school, I used to read Entrepreneur magazine, and I don't know if you remember in the back all those franchises. I used to cut out the franchises that I said, I'm going to buy those companies someday. When I was in college, I used to read self-help and entrepreneur books until I was blue in the face. And I was sitting on the deck, and I was reflecting how grateful I was that so much of that I dreamed about had come true. But then there was this voice in my head that said, David, yes, you're grateful for everything, but your 20-year-old self would have expected you to have a bigger business by now and to be more well-known. And that brewed in my head for a few moments. And I made the mistake to tell that to my father. And as soon as he heard that, he shot back, do you know how many people would want to have what you have and have achieved what you've achieved? The truth was, I felt stuck in my comfort zone, and I felt that way for years. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being in your comfort zone because it's comfortable. But there's things that I wanted to do, achieve, and have that I knew I would have to be uncomfortable to get them. The question was I willing to do that? And did I know how? So a couple days after that conversation, I decided to write down a list of all the things that I needed to do and achieve that by the time I was 60, I wouldn't regret the past 20 years. So I went to my home office and I got this notepad that had about 100 sheets in it. And I got my favorite pen that I could write for hours. I went to sit in my ergonomic chair. That's the most comfortable $800 chair. And I sit down in the chair and I felt it. Brilliance was about to come. I saw the fireworks coming from the ceiling. I pick up the pen. My mind is blank. I realized it wasn't going to be that easy. So I decided to reflect on the past 40 years of my life to determine what it was that got me to that spot today. And there was a couple key moments that I realized when I determined to get out of my comfort zone for good. And tonight I want to share that with you. The thing is, I almost never became an entrepreneur. When I graduated college, I said, David, this is your time. 5 years later, in 4 sales jobs, I started to panic. I started to wonder if that voice inside my head was ever going to come into reality. So I did what any budding entrepreneur would do. I did what my dad wanted me to do, and I went to law school. I decided it was better to have a career for the next 30 years than go from one sales job to the next with very little direction. And unlike in college, I wanted to put everything into it. So my second year, when I had an opportunity to work at a top real estate firm, I took it. And my job was to go to do closings and represent the banks. And when you represent the banks at the closings, the paper goes this high. And I had to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and deal with the HUD form. If you don't know what a HUD form is, you're better off, okay? I hated it, and I wasn't good at it. A couple of weeks before the summer was coming to the end, I went to the managing partner's office who I worked for, and I knocked on the door. His name was Tom. Tom was an A-type personality, had the power tie on, never smiled. What's up? What's up, Dave? I said, Tom, can I come in for a moment? Have a seat. As I'm walking in, I feel my heart beating, you know? It's never an easy conversation. And I look at Tom, I said, Tom, thank you for the opportunity this summer. But at the end of the summer, I'm going to focus on my studies, and I'm going to leave the job. Oh, that wasn't so bad. You're not staying on. The only reason I hired you this summer was to work the year. You wasted my time. Do you think I'm going to give you a review for the bar exam? I want you out of here and leave today. It felt like it went on for hours. I got up. I opened the door. The normally bustling office was dead silent. I didn't look to the left. I didn't look to the right. I went straight to the elevator, hit the button, went down to the streets of Manhattan, and I just started to bawl. Over the next few days, I reflected on what happened there. And there was two things I was sure about. Number one, I was never going to put myself in a situation again and work to be treated by somebody like that. And number two, I was never going to treat somebody like that in a workplace. And there was a visceral reaction that the dream I had since I was a kid, I was going to figure out how to make that happen. So I started moving forward. I didn't know what kind of company I wanted to start, but I knew I needed to do something. I loved listening to people and hearing their stories. So I started a cable TV show, and I started interviewing entrepreneurs because I was trying to find the magic answer how to start a business within 1 year or less of graduating law school. And there was one theme that I learned through all these interviews, and that was take action. In fact, take action is a theme that I've seen throughout my entrepreneurial career. Not soon after joining EO, I heard this story about a farmer who bought a horse from his neighbor. It takes place 2,000 years ago in China. The day after he bought the horse from his neighbor, the horse escaped. The neighbor comes running over and goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, your horse escapes." The farmer looks at him in the eyes and says, "Good thing? Bad thing? Who knows?" Wasn't a Jewish accent, but that's the best I got. That's my version. 2 days later, the horse comes back, but it brings 3 wild horses with it. They're able to get it back in the stables. The neighbor sees this. He comes running over. "Oh my God, you're so lucky. You got all the horses." The farmer looks at him and says, "Good thing? Bad thing? Who knows?" 3 days later, the farmer's son is riding on one of the wild horses and breaks his leg. The neighbor sees this. He runs over and goes, "This is terrible. I am so sorry." The farmer looks at him and says, "Good thing? Bad thing? Who knows? The next time I'm going to have you guys do it with me." Finally, there's a war that breaks out, and all young men are conscripted to fight. The neighbor's sons have to go off and fight in the army. He comes running over to the neighbor. "Oh my God, you're so lucky. Your son's injured. He doesn't go fight." The farmer looks at him and says, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" And of course, the story goes on forever. The moral of the story is, an outcome is not bad until you label it bad. You could have said what happened to me at that lawyer's office at that moment was a bad thing, but I kept moving forward. I started a TV show interviewing entrepreneurs, and I had an idea. I can take the same camera and I can interview lawyers. I can take those interviews and turn them to online courses. I could take an idea that my dad had started 6 years earlier and didn't come to full fruition and turn it into a business. Within 1 year of graduating law school, I was an entrepreneur. I took that same camera and I took it to EO. I interviewed a dozen EO members before I was even a member. And I said, someday, if I can qualify, I'm going to join this organization. And I'm standing here today because of what happened in that lawyer's office. So why, when I was with my dad on my deck, did I feel stuck in my comfort zone? I was still moving forward, but I wanted to move forward faster. And after my dad shot back that line to me, I was sitting there just thinking for a few moments. And I realized it's not that I wanted a bigger business or more fame. I'm not going to complain, but that's not what I was saying. What I realized I was saying, I wanted to have a bigger impact, and I wanted to do it faster. And all of a sudden, that shift in thinking from I want to get out of my comfort zone for me to I want to get out of my comfort zone for good, to have impact, everything changed. All the actions that I wanted to do over the years and was unable to do happened. After 3 years of being nominated to be on the president of EO and saying no, I finally said yes. I was scared shitless, but this chapter has done so much for me. I knew it was the best way I can have impact on the chapter. There's so much research and studies that show if you plan and you write goals, you're so much more likely to hit them. So I've spent the past 2 years creating a framework so I can be more fearless and focused over the next 20 years of my life. And next month, I'm publishing a book called The Fast Forward Mindset because I want to impact millions of people to fulfill their potential. And finally, after 5 years of my wife and I talking about it, but not doing anything, we finally decided 3 months ago to move abroad for a year. In August, we'll be moving to Barcelona because we want our children to experience more of the world. I'm sitting with my dad on my deck. I'm 60, he's 92. I look him in the eyes and I say, my 40-year-old self would be so proud of what I've done because I've been as fearless and as focused as I could have been, and I've fast-forwarded my impact on the world around me. The question I have for you is, what do you want to say 20 years from today? Thank you.